Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Into the Red Rabbit Hole with Nighthawk, your host. And we're going to get into a lot of different subjects tonight. I'd like to talk about the moon and its alleged spire on the moon, the tower on the moon, whatever you want to call it, and the alleged correlation to soul recycling in this world. And then we're going to get into, a little bit of other stuff, some haunted stuff and other mysteries that need to be looked at very closely. So with that being said, the copyright disclaimer is this channel may use some copyrighted material without specific authorization of the owner, but contends that it falls under the Fair Use, which is the Copyright Act of 1976. Nighthawk High Strange's podcast channel and all the podcasts on the channel declare fair use of any and all content under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976 for allowances such as criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research, parody, and let's forget the entertainment value. Per Title 17 under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, otherwise known as the Fair Use Act. Okay, that being said, let me get that off of there and get to the chat where I can say hello to everybody. Let me get this picture down a little bit. Give me 1 second, folks. All right, let's see. Okay, we've got Roxanne in the chat. Good to see you. ED's in the chat. Well, where in the heck is he? Gemini Moon, good to see you. Good to see you. ED. That ED Testerman guy's out there, Roxanne. You better keep an eye on him for me. Keep an eye on him. Anyways. There's a lot being said lately about the moon, the whole mystery of the thing, with the firmament around our world, alleged firmament, which it says in the Bible, which I do believe in. But at the same time, it also there's talk about this being a soul prison planet that we're on, and that when we die, our soul goes to the moon because it's collected in the moon by a tower that's on the moon called the Soul Recycler. And it looks a little something like this. Let me see. That's what they're saying is the Soul Recycler, okay? Now, this tower is almost like, I think it's like 4.6 or 4.8 kilometers high. Okay. Yeah, in fact, it says it on there. But is it really what they say it is? Or is it just another story that NASA's making up and passing around to, authenticate that they've been on the moon? I don't know. I really don't know. I highly doubt it that it's a soul recycler, because you would have to believe in the theory that your soul can be recycled. Okay. It's my belief that our soul is a one-shot deal. Okay. And we either move on one way or the other, and you don't want to go with the latter. Okay. So, anyways, I thought that was interesting. Then I started thinking about it even a little bit more. what if, just per se, what if that was some kind of a monolith? Okay, a spire that they use, that whatever is inhabiting the moon, inside the moon, because they all say it's hollow because it rang like a bell. It sounded like a bell one time when a piece of the moon lander hit it, and it sounded like a bell going off, which is a whole nother story to itself. But I just don't believe that it's a soul recycler. I would think that it's more like the monoliths that are in on the Earth, except a lot bigger. And it probably acts like an antenna for energy. I would say that it, be energy. It could be an antenna to link communication to all craft that they have, kind of like a hive mentality. I don't know. I just don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting to talk about tonight, and I don't know a whole lot about it. I haven't really. I mean, I've brushed over it some, but to really know anything about it, I really would have to get more in depth later. But I would definitely say that it does something, whether it affects our oceans with the tide ebbing and flowing, whether it affects our way that we have deal with climate down here, whether it deals with the sun itself. Maybe it's an antenna or a collector for energy from the sun to power whatever device is inside the moon. I mean, there could be so many theories that you could make about the moon itself. I always said, when I was a kid, I always said, the moon looks like a Death Star. And it does. It literally does look like a Death Star from the Star Wars movies. Is that what it is? I mean, it would make sense, because if you think about it, back in history, there's really no mention of the moon. There's mention of the moon being brought here to our galaxy, to our Milky Way galaxy. Think about that. And science just proved that there is something going on to where our galaxy is merging with another galaxy inside the Milky Way system, and that's possibly where the moon came from. And the same galaxy is supposed to have the reptilian race that is very, very mean and malevolent. They're not nice at all towards humans. In fact, they consider humans as food. Okay, and that's something I've always said too. I've always said, question everything, but there's so many things you question and you get answers to, and sometimes the answer is a little different than what you had previously, but it all basically adds up to the same. Okay, 2 + 2 is 4, and that's exactly what we got. I just thought that was very interesting. I don't know what you guys think about the moon. Let me go back to the chat. Get them, Roxanne, get them. The Norse talk about Odin and the other gods creating the moon. That's the only one that I can think of at the top of my head. That's coming from ED, as we all know. Is it's not ED at all. It's Eric in disguise, incognito. So, anyways, it's probably more. The man in the moon is real. Yes, that's true, Roxanne. That's very true. All the little men, I don't know if they're green men, but the little men in the moon are definitely real. But there's even talk of the moon actually being like brought here with a gravitational tow from the other galaxy that's joining ours. And science says that that galaxy is merging with ours very, very slowly. So there's going to be other planets showing up. Now, whether I trust the scientist or not on that, I would have to say not. I don't believe anything science has to say unless I can find out for myself. Okay. And their only reason being is they have lied to us since day one, since the day we're brought into this world. They lie to us. Okay. There's no such thing as a gravitational fluctuation inside a an Earth. If you have water on a planet like as much as we have, which is 70% of the planet, that water would not be able to be held up by gravity. It would always stress the system that the Earth is evolving around, okay? And it would seek the least resistance. Water always seeks the least resistance. Do you remember that little scene in the first Jurassic Park movie where the weird guy that turned himself into a fly in the movie put the droplet of water on the one woman's hand, the professor's hand, and it went down one way on the back of her hand, and then he put a second one down and it went a different way? That's what I'm talking about. Okay, he said the imperfections, the tiny imperfections in the hand is what causes that. Well, think about the imperfections in our world. Okay, we wouldn't be able to hold the water on a globe. There'd be no way possible unless it was encased inside some kind of container. Okay, that's basically what we have. We have a container. It's like I've always said, we have what scientists like to call a petri dish, you know, and that's pretty much what it is. I think that not only is our world a petri dish, and we're basically cattle. I'd also believe that we have to go through this to go on to the next level. Okay. And some of us that don't make it through or build our vibration or whatever, our spirituality, our aura, whatever you want to call it, our energy, our chi, up to a certain level, if we don't improve it, then we don't move on. Then we possibly get recycled back into the next life in this planet. That's a possibility. Or we can always do what I say that we should do, and that's if you just turn around, completely around in the opposite direction of where you see the light, and you'll see the vast universe behind you. And you have a choice. You could either go to where you came from, which could be a lot worse than what Earth is, or you could go back to Earth. Okay. That's just a theory of mine. And there's a few people out there that kind of, subscribe to that. But, I always thought that it was possible, He's going to be a hard one to control, Roxanne. Yeah, yep. Sorry, I had to get a drink of coffee. Yeah, I'm drinking coffee at 11:10 at night. That's probably why I don't go to sleep right away, huh? More than likely. Uh-oh, he's back. He didn't say he'd be back. Hey, Freaky, good to see you. But I don't know, what do you all think about this whole moon being the tower on the moon being a soul collector and recycling our souls back to Earth? I mean, it's possible. Anything is possible when you theorize the moon being hollow. I mean, for that matter, the moon could hold an entire alien race that eventually wants to take over our planet because they destroyed theirs. And they're just trying to see how far technology wise we've gotten in a short period of time. And it just seems like in a short period of time, in about a 1,000-year period, our technology has really gone haywire. The other theory I have too, dealing with the moon, in fact, we got Eric says a bouncing baby fluffy boy. Yes, he is. Let's see here. Let me get a close-up picture of that. All right, there's the close-up. Let me get the comment off of there. I'll get this eventually. Everybody just bear with me. Okay. Now, to me, that looks like a spire. Okay. To me, that looks like you find something like that in Egypt. In fact, you can even see where it's got like the corner, the outside corner, where the yellow thumbtack goes down, goes straight down from that. You can see like there's a corner, an outside corner on that. So it very well could be an obelisk. The only difference is that it comes to a sharper point. The obelisks on Earth, they tend to be a little bit more angled at the top, separate from the whole, the whole dynamics of the whole thing. What do you mean right now? uh, Tell him, Roxanne. What does he mean right now? His mind is wacky right now. Anyways, what if that thing was actually something to do with communications or holographic imaging in our world coming from the moon? What if the moon was, say, well, just picture it this way. Picture the moon being like NASA, the main office in Houston, NASA, back in the 60s and 70s when they were real big. Picture the moon being like that. It's kind of like their HQ, their central control, whatever you want to call it. Their central, place where the alien race comes from, to where they can project images onto our planet with some kind of a holographic imaging device or a mind control device. That's been thought up too. It very well could be. It very well could be. But the thing of it is, if you notice, with the moon not moving, the one side of the moon staying facing us the whole time, that kind of a device on the moon would make a lot more sense to basically use to manipulate humanity into believing what their eyes are seeing. And they developed this, and this is like the ancient AI that I talk about. There's been civilization built on top of civilization, but the civilization we're building on was more advanced than we are right now. So what if that is literally the ancient AI, the one that's automatically running our world, basically, doing the whole holographic thing, the controlling of the weather, the mind control stuff, all that type of stuff. What if this is exactly what that is the ancient AI, and the AI uses the grays as kind of like pawns to move around and to bring people up to the moon to test or, do whatever they do to them, and then release back to the earth, you know. There's also been thoughts and theories on this thing being the tower that can like take people, transport people from one dimension into another or one planet to another, in a very blip of the eye. Um, there's really, any way you can go with this. I mean, there's a million and one ways you can go with what this is. Okay, NASA still has no idea what it is. China just calls it the tower, and then they have a cube that they found on the moon. What China says, China calls it the shack. Okay, so, but I highly doubt it. I mean, anybody that saw the Chinese moon landing that was broadcast, it looked like something out of freaking 1980s Atari system, gaming system. It looked ridiculously childish and phony. So, but that, there's so many things that it could be, but I would say that it's probably not what people think it is as far as a soul recycler. I can't believe that for the life of me. I just can't. Let me see. Yeah, lookout tower could be. I don't know. It's just really weird how there's only one, and it's over 4 kilometers high in height. It's just, to me, that's just a little odd that they have just one. Is it an ancient weapon? Is it, teleportation device? Is it a holographic imaging? It's something to be used to influence Earth. That I guarantee. That I would lay my last dollar on, to tell you the truth. Anyways, let me see here. I just find that very interesting. And then you put the whole with what's going on in our planet right now. How many of you know what's going on with Yellowstone? Yellowstone just had that major eruption. They say it's nothing to worry about. It happens all the time. And I say bullshit. It doesn't happen all the time. That's a lie. That's a blatant lie. It does not happen all the time. But yeah, that's one of their geysers in a what did they call it? It's one of the basins. It's not the Old Faithful one, but it's one next to the one of the basins next to the Old Faithful one. And there were people on that deck walking out there. There was people standing right there taking pictures of the thing when it blew, and it was horrific. I watched a video on it, and those people, my God, I'm surprised. I'm surprised nobody got unalived. I really am, or badly burned, because the amount of temperature off of that steam alone would scorch your skin. There'd be no way to stop your skin from getting burnt. In fact, they haven't really divulged how those people are doing. Some of them could have very well unalived, but and some of them could have been burnt really bad, but they're not letting out any information about those people one bit, except they're saying that there was nobody hurt. How can you have something like that and say nobody got hurt? That is probably one of the worst things that I've seen, other than a volcano eruption completely, like Mount St. Helens. That's a what do they call it? A primoplasties explosion. where it throws the rocks and the soot and the ash up in the air, but without lava. It throws the steam out, and the lava is like down below. But every time it does that, that lava gets a little closer to the surface. What if that thing on the moon is causing our planet to have all of this violent nature? Because see, here's what I'm trying to pair together with this. Okay, I'm trying to pair together the fact that there is the reptilian race. Okay, more than one. We all know there's the ones that became almost human-like, that are not malevolent in nature, for the most part. I mean, they have their good and bad, just like we do. But the ones that came from, that are the draconians, that came from the Orion's belt area, okay, of the solar system. And anyways, I'm trying to link. Oh, here's a good one for you all. I'm trying to link the reptilians with that kind of a theory of them making this planet more likened to having a warmer climate and a drier climate, because they are reptilian in nature, and they can't get their blood warm enough unless they increase the temperature of the planet. I mean, does that make sense to anybody? I mean, I'm not even sure that it makes sense to me, but that's just one of the theories I've been kicking around. You know, they want the planet for something, and they want some of us for something. And I think we know what that something is. It's adrenochrome, okay, and it's food and experimentation, okay. That's pretty much the three things that they want. And they want our environment, our planet. They want to be able to multiply, and, you know, in order for them to do that, they're going to have a suitable planet. So why not just make the planet less conducive to how we would enjoy having it, like 70 degrees and 75 degrees and sunny, you know? Most people like all four of the seasons, you know. I could do without a heavy winter, but you know what? I do like winter too. It's something that we need. It symbolizes rebirth come spring. But they, reptilian type beings are not going to like that. They're not going to like that ice cold and the cold, damp, springs in the beginning of springs, and the cold, wintry coming up, fall and October and stuff, So they're not going to be liking that. So they're going to want to make the planet something that is more conforming to what they need to live in. Like you think of the lizards laying on the rocks in the pet stores with the heat lamp on top of it. That's kind of what they want our environment to be. One big heat lamp called the sun, 24/7. Okay. If they need to sleep, they can go under the ground, burrow under the ground, under the dirt, and and find a cave or something to block out the sun to sleep. But they want the sun 24/7. They want the temperature at least 100 and some degrees year round. Okay. It's because they need it to survive, to make their race stronger. Okay. And more viable here on this planet. But that is just a theory I had. And if it isn't that, then why are there so many statues like this one around? Why are there so many depictions of beings that are half lizard or half snake and human looking? I mean, think about it. If that's not the case, what is the reason for it? Even my ancestors, the old ones and stuff, they wrote on petroglyphs and stuff on walls and stuff and cave walls and on sides of cliffs. Um, you know, there's a reason for these drawings. Okay, a reason for every one, and this one in particular shows you that it's a royalty type of a thing. You can tell by the crowns that are over their heads. Okay, it's more of like depiction of a family, but it's not really even a depiction of a real family. It's like a royal lineage type of a family. But if you notice, they're decorated up like just like the headdresses and the jewelry and stuff of the Aztec people. Okay, on this petroglyph here. I mean, it's not that far fetched because we found proof that the Mayans came all the way into Georgia. Okay, there's a mountain chain in Georgia that they've discovered that the Mayans built some stone pyramids on, and there's all kinds of information and stuff you can find in Georgia if you go out into the woods and look around. There's places that our government doesn't even allow you to go unless you apply for a permit to go. So, and they can deny permits. We all know that. But yeah, we've got that going on. So it's not that far fetched thinking that there could be some kind of a population of reptilians that are trying to convert this planet to be more appropriately designed for their needs. Okay, for their needs, their wants, and their way of life. I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't want it to be 105 to 115 degrees every day of the year, 365 days a year, 24/7. No, that just wouldn't do it for me. If that is the case, then we're in for a real fight. Let's put it that way. So let me go back to the chat and see what you guys think. Give me a second. Catch up. Cynthia, good to see you. Uncut Savage, good to see you. Good to see you. Let's see if Freaky getting in trouble. Either way, it's a tower. I don't think it is a tower. I'm not 100% sold on that whole tower business. I'm really not. I'll tell you why. Because it looks more like, to me, pull that picture up here again. It looks more like to me that it is more of an obelisk than anything, and obelisks, they use those in Egypt to collect energy, to transmit energy. Okay. They could possibly even have it charged up enough to even open a portal or wormhole or something because of the direction that it's pointing. Think about it. It's pointing straight up. That'd be the perfect device to actually open up portals. And to do it at a distance, you would need something very huge, and that thing being over 4, almost 5.5 miles high. That's a tall piece of the moon there, that's for sure. But if it was a tower, you would think that it would be built more like a rectangle, more square looking, instead of coming to a point. And like I said, you can distinctly see the outside corner going down the middle of it from where that yellow thumbtack is. Follow that straight down, and you'll see what I'm talking about with the shading. Excuse me. That's just, to me, that is definitely something to be worried about. But then again, we've got so much to worry about in this damn world. It's pitiful. It's absolutely pitiful. There's a couple pictures I want to show you guys too, okay, with what's going on. We got into the Goat Man, talking about the Goat Man Tuesday night, and I thought that was really good. Or no, Wednesday night. Yeah, Wednesday night, and we're gonna do that again. We're gonna be bringing back that Midnight's Monsters again. But it's gonna be the twice a week. Twice a week. It's gonna be twice a month, and I'm also putting together a show that I think is going to be really good for everybody in the chat, especially with the way things are nowadays. And that is, it's called Operation Blackout Podcast. Okay, it's basically a prepper podcast where we're going to be able to show you guys how to do certain things, how to prepare certain things, what you would need to sustain yourself, that kind of stuff. We're going to bring guests on, like military guests and bushcrafters, that can, teach some of their things to you all in the chat. And I think it's going to be a good thing. I'm going to try and get it to start not this coming week, but the week after that. It'll be on the first Tuesday of the month and the third Tuesday of the month at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so that's what that's going to be, and I'm trying to figure out who's going to host it. I think I got somebody, and he's going to let me know. And I've already got a couple people that I think will be good guests for him to talk to. ED Testerman might be one of the guests on there. And a few others that I know. I want to get Graybeard on there. I don't know if anybody follows Graybeard, but the man is phenomenal. This is one of his books. Okay, talks about everything, and it's a good book. It really is. But I'd like to get him on. And then with the Midnight Monsters thing, doing that twice a month too, the first Wednesday and the third Wednesday of the month at 11 o'clock, or right around 11:30 actually. Okay, that's about what I started it at the other night. So, but that way it doesn't get confusing for everybody, because when you say midnight, they're going to think, okay, well, it's Wednesday night at midnight. Well, Wednesday night at midnight is technically the following day. So, yeah. But anyways, I wasn't about to do it on Thursday night. Then I've got a couple pictures here, trail camera pictures I want to show you guys too, just to show you what some people are saying is happening and stuff around. This one here is really something. Let me get the comment off of there. Sorry, Freaky, gotta get your comment off. Hide current comment. I showed that the other night, Wednesday night on the program, and to me it looks like a bunch of chimpanzees. Someone submitted this as being authentic and possibly a Bigfoot clan. You know how people are, they just post this crap without checking it out to make sure that it's actually correct. Okay. I checked it out. It's technically, yes, it is an actual picture. It's not AI generated, okay, but it is a picture that could have been manipulated, okay. Anybody can fuzzy up a screen, okay, make it look like something more than what they're not. But I believe this was actually taken at a reserve, a wildlife reserve, where they have a bunch of monkeys in an area, in an enclosure, and I believe that's the picture from this. Okay, so don't believe everything that you see on the internet, guys. Okay, there's so much faking and hoaxing going on right now with AI. And to tell you the truth, I even uploaded some of the AI stuff. We talked about in the phone call from a certain somebody in the White House that they said that it was all done with AI. Well, I looked into that app, and that app is incredible. I mean, I could play an hour-long program if I, told it what to say, and I had a tape of somebody's voice, and I can play it right back to say say ED, I could play it back in ED's voice to ED, and he would not believe how real it would sound. So I definitely got that on my phone, and I'm gonna tinker around with it and see if you all can figure it out. Okay, that'll be a kind of a test. Yeah, I saw that picture and I said, that's a little far fetched for me. But anyways, I just wanted to come on tonight, briefly and just discuss a few things. The whole thing with the moon, there's legends of the night being so dark that there was nothing in the sky except distant stars. So the night was real dark. And this comes from a Native American standpoint, okay, of learning about our history. Hey, Griff, good to see you. Don, good to see you. There's legends of the night being without a moon, okay, for a long time in our past. And then all of a sudden, boom, it appears, And I think scientists are making up this shit as they go along. I really do. It's not taking anything away from these guys, okay? Because these guys are super smart, okay? They're smarter than me. I give them credit. They're smarter than I am. I'm just a dumb Indian. But they tend to exaggerate on things that they really have no idea what to conclude and why, like what the moon is, why it's there, why it wasn't talked about in ancient times. If it was during the days of Jesus's birth, you would think that it would have said something about the moon in the text of the birth. The moon lit their way. Showing the path, following the sun, the starlight. It's just they would have mentioned it one way or another in the Bible. Okay, so at least at that point in time in the Bible. I'm not a big firm believer on it. Okay. As far as the moon being there since the beginning, I'm just not. I don't believe that for 1 minute. Okay. No more than I believe that we're living on a flat plane. Okay. Like the side of a quarter, I don't believe that. I don't believe we live on a globe either, though. I think it's somewhere in between, somewhere in between, because you just can't have water stay on a globe no matter how strong your so-called gravitational field is. Water's always going to follow the least resistance, okay? And there's just, if gravity was that heavy to hold the water on when it's at the bottom of the globe, okay, and we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, really? Why don't the stars look blurred? Why don't we, it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. So I don't trust any damn scientist, to tell you the truth. They would really have to prove it to me that what they say is true. Okay. I don't know. I don't believe it for the life of me. I really don't. So, but anyways, I just wanted to come on tonight and let everybody know about the new podcast coming out. In fact, I'm thinking about having David and Melissa from the chat actually be the host of it, and they could, bring ED on, they can bring Camo Dad on, they can bring, anybody that's got, survival or bushcraft skills on and interview them, that kind of stuff. So I mean, basically military vets and bushcrafters and stuff like that. I think it'd just be good for everybody to know a little bit, because you never know. Times aren't going to get any easier right away. It's going to take quite a number of years to straighten out this country and get it back on track. Okay, it's not going to happen overnight. There's going to be times when people are going to bed hungry and starving. Okay, more than once. I've been that way in my lifetime, especially growing up. Where we'd go, a day and a half without any food, because my dad was a truck driver. He wasn't around. And, in them days, they didn't have direct deposit and all this other mobile banking crap, so we had to wait till he got home. So, it is what it is. Let me see. Judaism is another thing that popped into my head, that pooped into my head. Popped in, okay, to my head about the moon, trying to think of others. Yeah. Well, don't strain yourself there, young fella. Don't strain yourself. I don't mean to be blunt with it. Only I just keep thinking of how things have been in my 53 years. Be aware if they take more and more from the people. Yes, well, Uncut Savage, that's true. I mean, you you're preaching to the choir here, man. That's true. I've been in this planet for 60 years now, and it's like it's being Native American. I mean, hell, they used to beat us and stuff for speaking our own language. Hell, it wasn't until the late 70s we were allowed to even do our ceremonies in public. You know, not till the late 70s, till after the American Indian movement, took Wounded Knee back in the 70s. During Vietnam. Um, we took over the Department of Interior's, building too in DC, back in the 70s. I mean, it's I can say that about my people, being hurt and being having no land stolen from them and left with nothing, disease ridden blankets. I always said that there are several things that the Europeans brought here, and every other culture brought here, that meant devastation to the native people, the inhabitants of this world. And that was the metal to make knives and spears, okay, and arrows, okay, more of a weapon. The horse, we never had a horse until it was brought here, okay. We used dogs. That's how the thing man's best friend came from. The dogs would, carry all of our lodge poles and stuff, and everything we would need, and we'd have several dogs. Um, the disease-ridden blankets that they used to hand out at the reservations and stuff, that the army people would come with the blankets, and they would never tell these people that these blankets were used for people that died of the Black Plague. And here they are handing them out to the indigenous inhabitants that they knew were susceptible to disease, because we never had these diseases. It was a pure world back then, a purer thing. And the rifle, is another thing that they brought here that meant instant death to all the indigenous people in America and South America, for that matter, if you think about it. you know so there's a lot of things that go on. Yeah, Don, the whole dog eating thing. I mean, my people were known to be dog eaters, but you know what, that's also a term that came about because basically the hardest of times in the winter were the winter months, and game was scarce, and that would be the only time that they would do that. And to be honest with you, that's why you saw three-legged dogs running around. you know if they didn't want if they loved the animal too much to kill it, they would actually just take its leg and use it for a stew or something. I know it's graphic, it's sick, I know, but you know what, that's the way it was back then. Okay. It says in the Bible that God gave us dominion over beasts, over the animals. So you got to look at it that way. I mean, it's no worse than taking a fishing pole and going to a lake or a pond and fishing and getting your food, or taking a hunting rifle and going out and blowing the heart out of an elk or a deer, and getting your food. It is what it is. Everybody does what they can to survive. And that's the whole reason I want this new podcast to be a success. The Operation Blackout, prepping. So that'll be a good one, I think. I think there's going to be a lot that everybody will learn. Maybe this old Indian can be taught a few things too. So, Ryan, good to see you, brother. Ryan, you know from being with the native people down there in Arizona. It's just something we deal with, man. They hell, I mean, if they wanted to get their water, living in a desert, you go right to a certain cactus, and you can get water out of the cactus. Or if you want to dig 20 feet down into the soil, the sand and stuff, and you could get water too. But it is what it is. Hi, Jessica. Good to see you. Deer leg furniture. That's oh, like coffee tables or end tables and stuff. Yeah, I've seen that done before. The best thing I've seen are the cool elk antler chandeliers. I seen a guy one time, a native guy one time, take and make a Christmas tree. He started out with the elk antlers because they're pretty big on the bottom, and he went up and he kept on finding smaller and smaller antlers all the way up to the top of this tree, and eventually he ended up with a 7 foot tall deer antler tree, and it was pretty cool looking. He had it all decked out with lights and everything too. It was pretty cool. He had it in his log home. It was beautiful though, with the lights on it. It was beautiful. So, but as far as the moon goes, guys, yeah, I don't see. I just don't think the moon is a natural thing. Okay, Jessica probably would be able to remote view it. I think she has. I believe Jessica has. Um, I'm just not sold on it being a soul recycler. I don't believe it. I don't. I don't believe it because that would mean that we would have some kind of memory, and everybody on the planet doesn't have the memories of a past life. Or like that one kid, for instance, that knew the name of a World War II flying pilot, fighter pilot, that died, and his plane crashed and he went down with it, and he knew exactly the type of plane. He knew where it went down at. He knew the guy's first last name. Something like that is believable, okay, especially if it comes from a child. But we are all not, and I know you'll go into, oh, they wipe your memory clean and all that, but there's only so many times they can wipe that slate clean, and then that slate becomes just useless, and you're not going to have any thought in your head at all. You're going to be just a mindless zombie, for a choice of words, you know. The moon. I remote viewed it and got the knock on the door. Oh, hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. See, Jessica agrees. It's definitely not natural. I agree too. I agree too. Well, guys, it's been an hour. I got to get up early and do a few things before the podcast in the morning. And, please like, heart, and share this out. We just sat around and had a good conversation, and I'm almost out of coffee. So, me and my coffee, I got to keep going. So, but Ryan, I'm going to be giving you a shout out tomorrow. Okay, I need to talk to you about a couple things. So please keep an eye out in Messenger. All right, Jessica, if you want to talk about this sometime on your show, that's fine too. We could talk about the moon. I don't care. I just I'm just not a firm believer that it's a soul collector. I think it has more to do with a an operations center per se with ancient AI. And I do believe that this planet that we're on is operated by an ancient AI, and I think the moon has something to do with it. I really do. So that's just my theory. So that and $1.50 might get you a cup of coffee. But anyways, everybody, have a great night. Like, heart, and share this out, okay, if you can, please. And question everything. Please question everything. All right. Take care, everybody. God bless you. Get a good night's rest. You'll need it. Till tomorrow.